One day we had a fight, Mac and I. I don't remember what it was about. We did that every now and again, little arguments that blew up into big ones. Nothing physical, nothing bad like that, but we'd scream at each other and I'd threaten to leave or he'd walk out and I wouldn't see him for a couple of days. It was the first time it had happened since she was born. The first time he'd just gone off and left me. She was just a few months old. The roof was leaking, I remember that. The sound of water dripping into buckets in the kitchen. It was freezing cold, the wind driving off the sea. It had been raining for days. I lit a fire in the living room, but it kept going out. I was so tired. I was drinking just to warm up, but it wasn't working, so I decided to get into the bath. And I took Libby in with me and put her on my chest, her head just under my chin. The room gets darker and darker until I'm there again, lying in the water, her body pressing into mine, a candle flickering just behind my head. I can hear it guttering, smell the wax, feel the chill of the air around my neck and shoulders. I'm heavy, my body sinking into the warmth. I'm exhausted. And then suddenly the candle is out and I'm cold. Really cold, my teeth chattering in my head, my whole body shaking. The house feels like it's shaking too, the wind screaming, tearing at the slates off the roof. I fell asleep, I say, and then I can't say any more because I can feel her again, no longer on my chest, her body wedged between my arm and the edge of the tub, her face in the water. We were both so cold. I fell asleep. I think I will be addressing issues around motherhood and just about what it is to be a woman in all my books because it's kind of what I'm interested in. And the book I'm writing at the moment actually is the central relationship is about its sisters. It's two sisters and a problematic relationship between them, and then problematic family relationships. But I am sort of concentrating on the women and how it is that they relate to each other and the sort of the competitiveness they feel and the distances they feel about the choices that they make. Ideas come to me in all sorts of ways, actually. And so the girl on the train, actually, it started with two different things, one of which was just the idea of witnessing something from your daily commute, because I'd done lots of commuting and stared into lots of houses and wondered what would happen if I saw something dramatic. So there was that element to it, but the second element was Rachel's character, who I thought about in a completely different context, and I'd sort of started a different book with this alcoholic character in it, but that book didn't work. So then I put the two things together. But yes, sometimes it's a character, and sometimes it's just a scenario, like seeing something from a train. I didn't do a great deal of research for The Girl on the Train. I mean, most of it's just imagination. The thing I had to read about was blackouts, alcoholic blackouts. So I read a book about, people who drink to excess and then black out. And there's loads of extraordinary stories about people, getting into a car, driving to a different city and not having a memory of it, or going to a house that they lived in as a child and murdering everyone in it, and then going home and taking all their clothes off and going to bed and having no recollection of it the next day. So there was some, really peculiar things like that. But that was the main piece of research. The rest of it mostly came out of my head. I've always loved an unreliable narrator, going back to, Wuthering Heights and that sort of thing. But I think in a thriller, it's a really interesting way of writing, because if you don't trust the person who's telling you the story, in a way it draws you into the story more, because you're having to read between the lines and you're sort of doing your own detective work around what's going on. Because if you can't trust them, then you have to sort of, you have to fill in the blanks, you have to figure out what's going on. So I think it's a particularly interesting way of bringing people into the story. Oh, I think the credibility of the characters is absolutely central to domestic noir, because we're not talking about serial killers and spies and all those, which are, I love reading about those kind of things, but it's a different thing. Most of us, touch wood, will never come into contact with serial killers, so we don't really know what they're like. But everybody knows that their own domestic scenario. So it's really rooted in the everyday. So you have to, when you're reading it, feel, yeah, I know those people. Those are the people who live next door, or that's exactly like that guy I used to go out with. You've got to feel like that this could happen to you, because that's, I think, what domestic noir is. That's one of the reasons we find it so compelling, is because this could happen to anyone. This could happen to you. The domestic noir panel was really fun because it's one of those rare occasions where you have a group of authors who all know each other's work quite well. So it was really interesting. You can have a sort of a deeper discussion because you all know where everyone's coming from. But I was particularly interested in Helen Fitzgerald's ideas about who she's really exploring the internet. Her book is about, it's called Viral. It's about what, if the worst thing you ever did got released on the internet. And I think that's a thing that we've probably all had, that terrible moment of thinking, oh God, I hope no one's filming this. So I think that's a really, that's an area that's going to be explored a lot now, I think, the internet and how much it encroaches into our lives and into our privacy and what it means for us all. I will continue to write psychological crime. It's what I'm really interested in at the moment. I don't know that in 10 years' time I will still feel that way, but at the moment it really feels right for me. It's that, it's the kind of thing I like to read, the kind of thing I like to watch on television, the kind of thing I find really compelling. So yes, for the time being, that's what I'll be doing. Obviously, our circumstances determine our actions. I think one of the things that's compelling about writing thrillers is taking ordinary people, applying pressures to them, and then imagining how they might react, how one might react in a given situation, and how people talk about, oh, your characters don't behave very badly or what have you, but you are talking about putting people under extreme pressures and then imagining what would happen next. And people behave in all sorts of extraordinary ways if you read the newspapers. So I think location is well, it's important in the sense of giving the reader something, a context for a story. So, for example, The Girl on the Train is very much that commuter belt in and out of London. However, I think actually the themes are universal, and you could actually transport that story to any commuter town anywhere. But just in the sense of you want the reader to kind of know, oh yeah, I know where I am. But then when you're actually, the themes, the voyeuristic, sort of that voyeuristic impulse, all those sorts of things, those are universal things. So actually you could uproot it and put it somewhere else. My next book is set outside of London. It is actually set in a fictional town in the north of England, somewhere sort of Northumberland, Scottish borders-y way. But it is, as I say, fictional because I like to be able to make the place up so I can move things around at will. But yeah, I wanted to move completely away from London, somewhere different, and where I've got different countryside, different sort of traditions and history to draw on.